as long as she could. She bought her own little car. It was a little blue English Ford. And she drove it around
She was 65 years old.
Yeah.
She taught herself how to drive.
Scared me to death to drive it. We were going out to see Lewis and his family one time, and we were in the wrong lane, and she said, "Oh, I got to get over that way," and she just took off over that way, going like this. We made it though. And yeah, she was a strong-willed person. My dad was too, really.
Yeah, I vaguely remember little Granny. I remember saying, well, you know, if it's little Granny, then he must be little Granddaddy. But I don't really remember him any at all. But I understand he wasn't all that little. He was a pretty.
No, he was a pretty good hefty sized man.
I remember him mostly as sitting on the front porch of that house on Pearl Home Road, and he'd sit in that rocking chair like this, you know, and he'd twiddle his thumbs. By then he was old and didn't have enough to do that he could do to keep him busy. And I think he was bored to death or something. He'd watch the traffic go by and sit there and twiddle his thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
But he did still grow a garden.
Okay.
And that helped.
What about your grandparents and your great-grandparents?
I don't remember any of them.
You don't remember
any
any
of them? I didn't know any of them. They all died before I was old enough to know them.
Okay.
I barely remember a grandmother, and I think it was my mother's mother. And she was kind of stern. I know we were not allowed to run in the house. And then they built houses with a hallway from the front door to the back porch. And we liked to run, chase each other. And I fell one time and hit the pump. You know, I had a little hand pump on the back porch. And I fell, and she, instead of getting sympathy, she said, "Well, you know, you weren't supposed to run in the house." But that's all I remember about my grandparents.
Yeah. I remember I sat down with you, I don't want to say how long ago it was, but it was at least 15 years ago. I guess I was about 12 years old, and I had a project for school, and you told a story. I guess it was one of your great uncles. Probably a story that you heard maybe from your mom or something, but one of your great uncles that was in Georgia at the time when General Sherman marched to the sea. And
that was my dad's family had a farmhouse, and when they learned that Sherman was coming down and tearing up everything in his path and stealing all the food and everything, and taking the men, and I guess some of the women, and my dad and his brothers went down to a creek a couple of miles from the house and just stayed down there while he came through, and he did go through their house. His army went through the house and took some of the things they had, but they didn't tear the house down or burn it down like they did a lot of them.
Yes.
And anyway, they survived that. It's a good thing they did, because they probably would have taken the boys and made them do work for them or something like that.
Yeah. And that was, where were they living at the time? What part of Georgia?
It was near a little town called Portal, P-O-R-T-A-L, Georgia. Not far from Statesboro. And we went up there looking for that old house, but they had torn it down, so we didn't get to visit.
Yeah.
But we left to go spend a day there with my parents, my aunt and uncle.
No.
I love peach cobbler to this day.
one of her one of her aunts, I don't know whether the same one she's talking about now, but used to make pickled peaches.
That was her Aunt Julia, Uncle Melvin's wife.
Was that
Uncle Melvin was the oldest one.
on your dad's side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of the 10 boys. And his mother had twins, and they were both boys, but they both died. My dad's mother liked to, well, she knew a lot about medicine and first aid and stuff like that, and people in the neighborhood used to call her whenever they got sick or got hurt, and she would go take care of them.
They didn't call her out per se. They'd send one of the kids down there and tell them to come up there quick, and somebody hurt.
In those days, that was calling the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep hearing Vidalia, Georgia. I heard that quite a lot.
That was a place in one of the little towns not too far from Statesboro. They had a nursing home there that was run by the church that they went to, called Primitive Baptist, kind of a strict group. Anyway, the nursing home was where my mother's sister, Dolly, stayed when she got old. And I think the nursing home was good. And Dolly was kind of a loner, like she almost drowned in a ditch when she was just almost a baby. And it left her brain a little damaged. And she never got married. And so she was kind of a loner by the time the rest of the family grew up.
Right.
She stayed with us for a while, and she stayed with some of the other members of the family a little while. But finally she went to this nursing home, and she died while she was there.
You're 83 now. You'll be 84 in March of 2004. So.
Gosh, I'm surprised you can keep up with that. Sometimes I have to stop and think.
Well, that's all right. I can't remember my own birthday, so I work on other people's. But so you're almost 84, so you've seen a lot. Is there anything that in 84 years that you really remember the most? Something.
I think most she probably remembers is when I run them off the ferry boat down there before we knew each other.
You ran them off the ferry boat.
When we were kids, we used to play on a board, a springy board, and we'd put it on something about this high, and somebody would get on either end, and we'd jump to send them way up in the air, and then they'd jump and send us up, stand-up seesaw thing.
Right, kind of like the circus.
And we had one in our backyard, and we had some bread, and I said, why don't we, there were chickens in the yard, I said, why don't we put some bread on the end of the jump board and let the chickens get up there, and we can give them a good ride up in the air. We did that. That chicken came down and the board landed right on his neck.
Oh.
Just right, so he never fluttered. He just was dead time the board hit him.
You had chicken that night, and your mom probably
Yeah,
wasn't.
we did. We had chicken for supper.
I bet your mom wasn't too happy about it either, was she?
I don't remember her reaction too much. I think we were all glad we had something good for supper.
How about the war? I know you and Granddaddy had probably just gotten married when he shipped off to the Navy. How did?
Well, actually, we had 2 children already when the war started, and I was pregnant with David, your dad, and he had to go, and he asked if I was due in about 4 or 5 months, and he asked if he could have a leave to come home when the baby was born. They told him he had to be there to lay the keel, but he didn't have to be there for the launching. So no, he couldn't get off. He was out in the middle of the Pacific when David was born. And it was rough times then.
Yeah.
Really rough, because with me, with 2 little kids, and Buddy was real active. Mickey was quiet, but I was pregnant, and it was a job for me, to handle everything by myself. And I know one time I went to get some milk for David after he was born, for your dad. And you know where Parental Home Road and Beach Boulevard branch off?
Sure do.
There's a little store right there in that branch. Well, I walked and pulled a wagon with 2 kids in it. I got his mother to keep the baby, and I pulled those 2 kids all the way down there to get milk for David, and everything was rationed. You had to have coupons.
Yeah.
And so you could only buy a certain amount of milk, even with a baby that needed it. And you didn't waste it.
Yeah.
You didn't waste anything back then. And if his mother hadn't lived right next door to us, I don't know how I would have made out while he was gone. But he had a bunch of other brothers that were in the service too.
4 of us in service together. Horace is the only one that didn't go to service.
Well, Pete didn't either, did he?
Yeah.
Pete was his younger brother, and he was more like Joe than any of his other brothers were. I liked him. And they were both working in a small boat for somebody, and for some doctor. And he left the boat. They were painting inside the boat. It was covered, so it was kind of close in there. And this paint was highly explosive. And he left the boat and went up on a hill there to get some water. And his brother Pete was down there, and this doctor came down to see how they were doing on his boat. And he was smoking or something. He lit a match.
No, he pulled the light cord.
Oh.
And the light came off the hook that we had it on, and it broke. Made a spark, except that it was undercoating is what we were using in the boat. Undercoating,
right?
Like you put in the car, and with the ether or whatever it mixed with, I don't know. But then they had it blowed up.
That's a wonder you guys made it out of there then.
Well, he didn't.
Oh, he didn't.
No, and I was down in the shop getting a drink of water. And the old doctor, he reached his hand in there, and he got his arm burnt about down to the hand. And the other guy that was in there with my brother, him and my brother were both blowed out of the compartment they were in, and it killed both of them.
So that was after the war.
Yeah, 1948.
So he just made it back, really.
Huh?
So he really had just made it back.
No, he'd been back about a year.
Yeah.
It was just before Bill was born. And our doctor lived with the nurse and her family on the street behind us. And the nurse came over there. She said, I knew I was just going to have to come over there and deliver that baby. She said, because I thought, they said on the radio that Brandt was killed. And she said, I just about knew it was Joe. And she said I was coming over there to deliver that baby. But it wasn't him, thank goodness.
Yeah.
It was really an act of God that it wasn't him, that he had left the boat.
Kind of scary.
It was. It really was.
So, We talk about that. So you were in the Navy. Were all your brothers in the Navy also, or did they go to different services?
All of them was in the Navy,
And,
except for Horace, Dickie's daddy. He never did go in service because he had bad eyes or something. I don't know what it was. But anyhow, he was a 4F.
I see. So everybody was over in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Those of you that were in. So.
Yeah, Pete was in Okinawa, and James was in New Hebrides, down south of the equator in the Pacific. And Earl was in Hawaii. He spent his time in Hawaii.
We think about it now. We think, wow, he got lucky. But Hawaii wasn't exactly a great place to be back then, was it?
Well, it wasn't bad then because it done run the Japanese back over in that part of the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were. I know you said you were off next to Okinawa for a while.
Yeah, I was on a destroyer.
Destroyer.
And we were in Okinawa about, I guess, about 5 or 6 months.
Was that during the Battle of Okinawa?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
And then we left there and went out on radar picket duty between Okinawa and southern Japan. And then we were in the fleet that went up on the carrier strike on Japan when they dropped the atomic bomb. And then Iwo Jima. And there was a battle in the Philippines. She was in Mindoro. Luzon. And I forget what name that little city there was, where Buckner Bay is. I don't know whether it's still Buckner Bay.
Buckner Bay. I think that might be. It's still Buckner Bay. I'm trying to remember if it's. Was it an American name that you called it, or did you call it by the Japanese name or the American name?
American name.
Oh, then I don't know what it is because they.
Are you talking about Buckner Bay there in Okinawa?
Yeah. Or are you talking about the Philippines or? Okinawa we're talking about still, right?
Yeah, Okinawa is where Buckner Bay was.
Yeah.
But this bay that Subic.
Okay, Subic Bay. Yeah.
And no, the Buckner Bay was named after
General Buckner from.
I don't know what he was. Reporter. Wartime reporter. There was one of them that was lost over there.
Oh, no, the reporter was. Is it Pyle? Ernie Pyle?
Huh?
The Army reporter, Ernie Pyle?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. In fact, I've seen the monument to him on Iejima, EA Island, right off of the west coast of Okinawa.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to do parachute jumps over there. And,
no, in Buckner Bay, there used to be, I don't know if it still is now or not, but there was kind of a reef like out from it. On high tide, you could go across it. But on low tide, you had to go around the end of it and come in. And that's where we were during the typhoon that they had in 45, late 45, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we had a bunch of ships in there. We had time together, put the stern like that, and then the bow. This one would be up here in the stern of these two, and then the bow of this one. And they took the lifeboats and took the anchors as far out as they could go, and then they tightened them up so that everything was pretty well secured. And 3 or 4 of the Liberty ships went aground on that reef out there. I know the Okinawans went out there and they rambled through the ships after the war was over and got all the goodies out of them.
Yeah. And they're still picking stuff up out of ships and stuff they find off. And every once in a while they'll find a new airplane or something that went down over there. That was pretty nasty fighting.
Oh, it was pretty rough.
And,
see, we what is the name of that bay that's well, Karamaretta. There's an island over here, and then over here there was a bay, and then there's a point. On low tide there was a point that came out there, and there was lots of I forget the name of the city because we didn't get too much of what cities, name of the cities or anything.
yeah.
But all we could see was where they were lobbing shells over there, and the planes were dropping bombs and stuff. One morning, just about 7 or 8 o'clock, and the radio tower field out there, what they call skip bombers, the planes would go down and they'd drop their bombs off the head of them like that, and then go almost straight up and out. Knocked down 4 radio towers there in one morning.